The views expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated.
We'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society. I'm your host, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and I'm here with my panel, Dr. Scott Gershwer and Dr. Mark Bound. Today we're going to be discussing issues and problems in the world, and we are going to be talking about some recent events. So, Mark, Scott, what do you got?
Well, let's focus a little on Russia and Ukraine, because there's a couple of little tidbits that came out, and it's getting lost probably in all the other nonsense that's going on in the world and the country right now with the tax bill and Iran and all that kind of stuff. Which is this. The New York Times this morning reported that they've done an investigation looking at sanctions, and that during the Biden administration, those 4 years, the Biden administration levied something like 6,200 blocks on sanctions on individuals, companies, vessels, aircrafts linked to Russia. About 170 new sanctions every single month from 2022 to 2024. The targets included oil and weapons production, tech procurement, banking, and they kept these sanctions going because without new sanctions, the old sanctions lose their potency. And so thousands of maintenance sanctions targeting new schemes that they were coming up with to fund their war were necessary, and that has ground to a halt in the last few months. Since January, since Trump became president, the United States has issued no new sanctions against Russia related to that full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and in some cases has even eased restrictions on Russian oligarchs and companies that are critical to the war effort, including military equipment, computer chips, and so on. So we've tilted basically what we did was we changed sides in this war. At the same time, what we're finding out is that we are not sending promised weapons, including Patriot missiles and other arms to Ukraine, which includes 155 millimeter artillery rounds, Patriot missiles, Stingers, all kinds of weapons that we were providing to Ukraine. We are no longer providing to Ukraine. So without making any big announcements, without declaring anything, we have switched sides in this war since January, and we are almost ensuring that Ukraine loses this war and that Putin gets to wipe Ukraine off the map and will then tend to put his focus on his next moves after that. And that's not something I would have expected to happen. But I'm not shocked by it.
No, I'm not shocked by it either. As somebody once said to me, people act exactly as you expect them to, and that this is something that really was not unexpected. It's been discussed. I guess if I'm surprised by anything with the Russian conflict over with Ukraine is. This is going to be a little bit of a different track onto this. The things that surprised me about it. Republicans have been known to be hawks for so long and anti-Russia, and yay everybody else, didn't matter who they were. I remember when Russia invaded Afghanistan. We actually boycotted the Olympics because of it. We were that. I mean, it was just they were the evil empire. They were our arch nemesis that we had, and Republicans were always the first ones in line to point that out. The thing that surprises me most is that that's not the case anymore. And I find that extremely difficult to reconcile with what I remember Republicans were. And I'm going to look to my own senator here in South Carolina, Lindsey Graham. I'm going to look to, I believe he's also from South Carolina, John Bolton. These people who, it was either Iran, Russia, and China and North Korea. They were the great evil axis of evil. Well, it just doesn't seem to be that way anymore. And that if there's one thing about this with like, as I say, the Russia-Ukraine conflict, this was our opportunity to support a country that had such backing from the rest of the world. The rest of the civilized world were so behind him. We're so behind the leader of Ukraine, and we missed that opportunity. Well, we are missing that opportunity. There was a period of time during the Biden administration where we weren't missing that opportunity, but we're missing it now. And it amazes me that we could be on the right side of history on this one, and we're just not taking that opportunity. And as I say, it's disturbing to me that we're not. And it's easy for people here in the United States saying, well, Ukraine, it's a long ways away. Who cares? Oh, it's Europe. Let them take care of themselves. Oh, this, that, and the other. This stuff doesn't go to them for free. This is an industry in itself. Let us remember back to World War II. Before we entered the war, before December 7th, 1941, we were involved, but we were the shopping center. We were the Walmart of things like weapons and supplies. And American business prospered from that endeavor. And again, we're missing that opportunity. Not only are we missing the opportunity, we're missing the point. So that I totally agree with everything that Scott said. I mean, I really do. But I kind of look at it from a different perspective, maybe more from a historical perspective, that this opportunity is being missed, and I really am. I guess I'm disturbed by that.
Well, I'll say this, and I do think that there's a difference between Russia today and the USSR. And the USSR was a communist country that really wanted to spread communism around the world, and that the Cold War was basically fought to contain that and prevent dominoes from falling. And I don't have to go through the whole history of the Cold War, but that's what it was all about. And yes, the Republicans were very gung ho about it, but the situation has flipped now, where Putin is probably seen more as a businessman, a capitalist doing business, and the kind of business that he does is a little rougher than what we're used to here in the States, but it's still business. Taking over other people's countries, getting, in this particular case, I think there's a religious aspect to it that makes it even crazier to me. And if, I'll just briefly say that Putin is apparently a devout Russian Orthodox adherent to that faith, and that he wants the Russian Empire that he's going to recreate along the lines of Peter the Great. Vladimir the Great wants that Russian Empire to be Christian and not Muslim. And Russia already has, I think, the second most Muslims, or was certainly the first most Muslims of any European country. And that if he were to expand to include the stands out in Asia that were part of the Soviet Union, it would be a Muslim majority country. Now, that didn't matter under communism because no religion was allowed during communism. But now he wants a Christian greater Russia or a Christian Russian empire. And I think that there are people in this country who understand the desire to have a Christian empire more than anybody ever would have supported communism in the United States, right? The right wing is full of fundamentalist Christian extremists who probably look at Putin as a fellow traveler and not an opponent, because after all, he's a Christian. And as far as Trump, who's not religious at all, is concerned, I think what Trump really likes is imperialism. And I think that we're on the brink of a new imperialism which if you think about what imperialism was, let's say in looking at the 1800s or the 1700s, taking over other people's countries, lands, and exploiting them for everything that you can get. And the darkness of that should not be lost on modern people, right? You look at what the Belgian king did to the Congo, for example. You can look at the wars in China and India waged by the British. All kinds of stuff going right up until the end of World War II. And now, after what will probably be seen as a brief respite from the end of World War II until now, less than a century, imperialism is back. And the new imperialism is being embraced by people who know that we need rare earth minerals and we need cobalt and lithium and all kinds of stuff like that we can get from other people's countries, and that as business people, shouldn't we make that decision? And that's the same kind of imperialism that we saw in the 1800s and into the 1900s as well. And that's what we're seeing right now. So that China gets Taiwan and Russia gets Ukraine and an empire that can threaten Europe or Asia. The United States looks at Greenland and says, oh, we need Greenland. We need the Panama Canal. We need Panama. We need northern Mexico because we can make it safer for America if we could only control northern Mexico. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's added to the list. We know that there's a military zone on the border now that extends some 100 miles inland that is not under control of states that are there, but under the military. And so we're moving toward that right now. Once we cross the border and start taking lands and putting our troops in the Mexican side, we'll see what the consequences of that. But that's the kind of imperialism that we're talking about. We see it in Israel, who has moved into Syria, taking advantage of the lull there, and is protecting its northern flank by occupying Syrian land and holding it right now so that Syria could never attack them again. And so we're seeing a shifting philosophy and governance that's moving towards this new imperialism, and Trump and Putin are very, very much in the vanguard of that. And I think that it's sick myself. I think that there are going to be dire consequences of it. Conquered people do not act politely to the conquerors, and that we should be ready for what comes next, which is, first of all, a police state here in the United States already in motion, concentration camps already being built, ICE and the internal Homeland Army already being funded, and imperialism abroad. So what do you think of that, Mark?
Oh, I agree. I agree. And a lot of we always like to look at the United States and say we were not imperialistic. We were not we did not engage in colonialism. And you know what? That's a load of crap. that's propaganda that you learn from your history that we learn here in the United States, which is all Star Spangled Banner, yay us, and boo everybody else. Just ask the Native Americans, and they'll tell you all about the American colonialism and the American imperialism. They'll tell you all about it. And again, I saw these great cartoons, which basically reiterate to the fact that they should have built a wall, but it was back when the Pilgrims landed. Right. Maybe that's when they should have built the wall. So I totally agree with your assessment of it. I think it's spot on. And I think that we have to start really realizing that when we look at history, the history of the United States, what we've done, we have always been in some form imperialistic and, a colonial power. So those that say the American empire, and there was some people, if you said that probably, 40 years ago, people would get offended. We're not an empire. We're not the British. We're not the Romans. We're not any of those people. We're not the Russians. We're none of those. We're the star-spangled banner democracy of the United States of America. That's what we are. But I got bad news for you. There was always where it was colonialism and imperialism kind of shown through, and now it's just a simple matter of really being involved. And once again, you're right, Scott, in the sense that they look at Greenland and say, gee, we need that for national security. Once again, whenever we talk about national security, we're talking domestic. And this is another one of those areas where even a nation that wants to be by itself, left alone, wants isolationism, they are still going to have some imperialistic and colonialistic properties to them because they look at their domestic security and they have to project it outside. Right now, and you're right, now we're starting to create a concentration camp down in Florida. I saw the picture of Ron DeSantis. He looks all happy as heck. It's nice to see that he didn't wear his little white booties to this one. But the fact is that that's the start. So you take away the opposition from within. You purify it from within. Purify the nation from within as the way you're going to describe purification and what needs to be purified. And then at that point in time, you begin to look just outside as to what would benefit me domestically. Taking Greenland does not benefit us tactically or anything like that, but it may benefit us domestically. Maybe they have minerals, maybe they have this, maybe they have that, whatever. Taking parts of Mexico, again, very possible. We would do it for domestic reasons, for the same reason that when Texas, back in the days of Sam Houston, when they were fighting the Mexicans, and it was the Texas Republic, we wanted them in. They were supposed to be the buffer from those Mexicans. So yeah, I mean, it all plays itself back. Every time you look at it, people just don't realize this plays itself back, and we're basically making the same mistakes that we made before. And we're basically trying to run the same old play in the hope that we're going to get different results into it. And I just don't see it. So I would agree. So Brooklyn has stepped away. We'd like to thank all our listeners for spending some time with us. We'd like to thank all of our subscribers for your continued support. And if you aren't a subscriber to the Nova Society on the platform you listen to, please do so. We would really appreciate that. Keep those emails coming. It keeps me off of the streets. And we will see you again next time on the Nova Society. The Nova Society is a production of Nova Society Media, a division of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our production partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, Apple iTunes, the largest source of podcasts and music on the internet, Spotify, the most popular platform for the Nova Society, and iHeartRadio, your source for all things music and podcasting. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms listed in our description. We'd also like to thank all of our listeners. Without your support, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a question or comment, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. So for Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, Dr. Scott Gershwer, and all of our production partners here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Remember, the true power in society is knowledge. Thanks for listening, and we will see you again next time. We'd like to thank our sponsor for this episode, the Phoenix Research Group, an independent research consortium offering social-political issue solutions to NGOs and international government agencies through multidisciplinary, nonpartisan, and unbiased research. The Phoenix Research Group is a division of the Phoenix Research Institute, the producer of the Nova Society podcast.